Hello. As the title may suggest, this is a sort of part 2 on the other video that I did, which was the what's the worst thing about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. The reason being is because I read other people's comments that I put on various different ex-witness Facebook sites, and it became pretty clear that what my feelings were as the worst thing about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, which is in complete opposition to what most people were saying, which obviously it was the thing about the family, that they've come out, the organisation, and their family won't speak to them because inevitably they get disfellowshipped for various different reasons. And so it ends up that the mum and dad don't see their children, well, that'll be their own grandchildren, and of course their own children. Sister won't speak against brother, and mother and father, and you know, I can only, in fact, I can't even imagine how bad that is. I have no idea what that's like. I just, it really is, must be the worst thing about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. So, fair play, yeah, you're right, it is. My version of leaving is completely different to that. But subsequently, I've had a rethink about my own position on what the worst thing is about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. And actually, what I stated before, I've realised is not the worst thing about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm not going to mention my family because it doesn't even come into this. It's actually what it's the consequence of what I said before, the consequence of realising that you've been controlled, manipulated, and you've been lied to recently, and then realising you've been led up the garden path and then let out the other side of the gate, you know. And to me now, the worst thing about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses isn't the fact of how I was conned, but it's the fact that for 28 years you were studying the scriptures daily, and you were learning about other religions in the sense that you were able to then put them down when you took out the Bible, in preparedness for when you go to people's doors and they say, oh, I'm a Catholic, and you go, hold on a second, you believe this is a Catholic, don't you? Yeah, well actually if you look at the Bible here, oh goodness sake, idols, oh you're right, so that clearly God can't be working with your faith. And the same for all the other religions. So in other words, if you're going outdoor chaplain, you have to be ready for everything, as we know, you have to prepare for everything. So that's why you feel you're so clued up, and that's why you think you know the Bible like the back in your hand, and you've got the backing of God, blah 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 blah. The problem is, when you leave the witnesses, when you realise it isn't the truth, there is nowhere else to go, because at that point, everything you believed in was literally based on the Bible that you've been studying, you know, every week of your life for God knows how many years, and now all of a sudden that has taken a complete battering. And then you start to look at the Bible with fresh eyes, because now there isn't a watchtower awake to sort of mislead you of what certain verses mean, or the moral of certain stories. So of course when you go into it and start to read it with a fresh pair of eyes, as I've done, that's when you realise, you think, goodness sake, this Adam and Eve story is preposterous. The Noah and the Ark story is unbelievable. The tale of Job is just ridiculous, and we could go on. We could just go on and on and on and on, and probably I will go on and on about some of the ridiculous things that we were taught. So the problem is that our concept of God, let's call it our westernized, although it's not really a western concept at all, is it? But let's say our westernized version of God is all based on the Eastern book, the Bible. And once you look at the Bible and say it's full of complete nonsense, then everything you've led to believe about God goes out the window. Especially the concept of God being a God of love and blah blah blah, which I've documented so many times before. So the problem is that then that leaves you in the place that I find myself. Not everybody will find themselves in this position at all. Some people still come out with the witnesses, still believing that the Bible is the Word of God, still believing that there is a God, still believing that God's Son came to the earth called Jesus Christ, that he blah 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 laid down his life so that we can get forgiven, so that we can now, and now you've gone back to what you probably viewed before, and you're probably back to the heavenly hope instead of the earthly hope. And some people have come out the witnesses and have done that. Unfortunately, in my personal circumstances, it hasn't happened. And it's not just me. I know other people that this is the same thing that's happened. And this, to me, is the worst aspect of leaving him. The worst aspect of leaving the witnesses is that when you come out of it, you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing, because you no longer have the faith. And the faith was in the book that now you look at and you realise it is nonsense. And so within that book had the hope for of a better life. At the time it would have been the earthly one, but for most people it's a heavenly one. So that better life has gone. So you've lost your faith and lost your hope, and you realise that you're all alone. That you are all alone, and this is it. And there are times in life when things happen in your life, it's your faith that carries you through difficult times. And it may be misguided, it may be misjudged, it may not even be true, but the power that a belief in something that, you know, to carry men through difficult circumstances, it's not, you can't even question it, because we know it does work and it does happen. And so I've had witnesses have come to my door, and despite me saying to them, I don't believe what you're teaching them, I've actually said to them, don't give up your faith. I've actually said to young witnesses, I may not say that now to them, but I've actually said to them, it's nice to believe in something. It's nice to believe in something. And this is why I really regret the day that somebody came to our door. Because beforehand, we went to the Methodist church, and we believed in God and the Bible, and I enjoyed singing songs, and I believed in the power of prayer, and I believed, of course, that everybody who died, if they were reasonably good, of course they went to heaven. That's what my belief was. And that belief systems in place for most mainstream religions today. That's what they think. They don't know the Bible, they don't really read the Bible, they have a respect for the Bible, they believe in God, they believe in there was a Jesus, they believe that he died for his sins, and they believe that through his sacrifice that God will forgive them to allow them access to go to heaven. So that is really comforting. It is really comforting when it comes to scenarios when you have a relative of yours who's dying, and you know their time on the earth is numbered, and they ask and you pray with them, or you pray that they will have a gentle release, knowing that when they die, that they'll close their eyes and open them, they'll be in a better place, and they'll then join maybe that person's wife or that person's father or mother in heaven. Then the family unit will continue, and that when you lose your mum or your dad, or maybe your brother and sister, or your wife, or even sadly a child, that when you go down to the grave where they are, that when you talk to them, that you are convinced that either they're in heaven listening to you, or maybe they're invisibly standing right behind you. And that is really comforting. I can imagine. I only believed that up until I was whatever, but I just imagine, I know this is true, because I've seen people on Facebook be comforted when relatives have died, and they've put things on like, now you've joined my mum or my dad, and I'll say hello to Uncle Frank for me. And people often on Facebook put things up like, happy heavenly birthday, missing you dad, hope you're looking after mum. And so it's a comfort, it's a comfort, it's a hope, it's a faith, it's a belief that they have. And the majority of people in this world do, even people who don't really practice our religion, don't go to church, they'll probably at the end of the day, if they're really in dire needs, they'll probably begin praying. And they'll, because they think this is the last person who can help them is God the Almighty. And they still believe that even if they die, or a relative does die, or some horrible illness, or whatever it is, that they take great strength in the knowledge that that person's no longer in pain anymore, but is in heaven, looking down at them, making sure they're all right. And which is why a lot of people then speak out spiritistic churches, because they want to just make sure they're all right. Which is why it's a whole new subject. And of course, I don't have that. I don't have a faith, a hope, or a belief. I have nothing at all. I have nothing. In fact, the person the person maybe that I may be getting a bus with, sitting next to, probably has that and knows nothing about the Bible. He has it. He has that hope. He has a faith. He has a belief. Doesn't know what it's based on, but he has that as a, as the backup to when anything goes wrong. Pray. If you die, you're up there. He has that, and I don't have that. So sometimes it may be best not to know. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, especially when it comes to matters of life and death. And that's what I really now struggle with more than anything. I know as as life will go on, I'll start to lose my mother and my father, and I'll then have to think, that's it, that's it. I'll never see them again, and I'll know eventually I'll approach my own time to leave this earth, knowing that's it, and then I can only look back thinking, well, at least I'll go to heaven now, and I'll spend the rest of my life in heaven, and it'll be great because I won't be grey and bald and old and knackered, and I'll rejoin lots of my relatives who I haven't seen for like 20 and 30 years, and friends that I've lost, and I'll be able to talk to famous people who've died, whatever. And I don't have that as a comfort. I don't have that, I think I just don't have it. It's as simple as that. And I wish I had it. I wish I had that. I wish I still believed we went to heaven. I really do wish I had that. And now, unfortunately, because I don't believe in the Bible, and because I don't believe there's probably a God, or the concept of God that we understand it, I don't believe that we go to heaven and this is it. And it's a really difficult thing to get to grips with. It's difficult. It really is. Even after all these years, it just is, because you are faced with the concept of heaven, not on a daily basis, but an awful lot of times, whether it is programs or films or what people put on Facebook, or just as you see yourself getting older, and you wonder, where do we go to when we die? So I've reevaluated what's the worst thing about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, and I think that's it. It's quite simple. You come out of it, or I have come out of it, without a faith, no belief, and no hope, and doubt that the reasons are God, and so therefore any thought of an afterlife or a comfort in when reaching that afterlife, because most of us, when we die, it isn't a good experience. Let's just put it that way. Let's see. I've watched somebody dying in front of me, and it wasn't a nice experience. And one day that could be me. So. Yeah, it's just a horrible thought to think that you go through all this life and just at the end, none of us have this wonderful thing that we just fall asleep and we don't wake up and we're off. We're not. Most of us, when we go, are usually hooked up to a whole load of crap, a whole load of chemicals, with people standing around us when we're in immense pain, just waiting for our heart to give out or whatever it is. And so it's What a depressing subject this is. Oh, God. Oh my God, I feel like cutting my wrist now. Oh dear. Anyways, there's really not much more to say about that. It's a sobering thought, and it's one that eventually it's another thing it's another reason why not to like the witnesses. They give you the greatest goal of all time, and then you move the goalpost, and then they hide the goalpost completely, and then you've got no goal. No goal. You just keep running. Anyway, I don't know when I'm going to upload this video, but if it does go up tonight, which I certainly hope it is, tomorrow night my band is playing in a place called Ivory Blacks. It's in Glasgow. It's on, I believe, Oswald Street. I think the band I'm on are going on around about 8 o'clock. It's £6 to get in. We'll be doing, and we've got a new drummer. We've got some whole load of new songs we've never ever done before. We'll still be doing one of my old songs called Heaven, which, funny enough, what are the chances that we're doing the song I wrote called Heaven about not going to heaven? It's ironic. But anyway, we're doing a song called Heaven. So yeah, we're playing for half an hour. So that's all right. So I know if any former friend, well, not former friend, but any former witness associates want to come along to Ivory Blacks in Glasgow, I'd like to. It'd be good to catch up, to shoot the breeze for a while, because I haven't seen most of these people for at least 17 years. It'd be nice to see how everybody's doing and how many of us still look good in our advanced ages, unlike me. But anyway, yeah, so this is me signing off yet again, and hopefully see you another time. And some of you tomorrow night, Sunday, Ivory Blacks, Glasgow. Bye bye.